Hello, everyone, and welcome. Again, thank you for spending your lunch hour with us. My name is Emily Abalera, and I create content for PATLive. I'll be your moderator today. Today's session is called Reclaim Billable Hours, Simple Outsourcing Wins for Law Firms. We work with a lot of small law firms, and one theme comes up over and over again. Attorneys did not go to law school to spend so much of their day doing admin work, but somehow that ends up happening. Today is about changing that. So, next slide, please, Cameron. I'm joined by two people who spend every day helping law firms solve this exact problem. First, Jackie Gonzalez, CEO of PATLive. Jackie, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, thank you, Emily. So I am the CEO of PATLive. I've been here for about 17 years, but I do have some experience on both sides of the house, if you will. I went to University of Miami School of Law prior to coming here and practiced law for several years down in the Southern District of Florida. I practiced bankruptcy law, which requires that your time is logged in 6-minute increments. And so I am very, very familiar and focused on finding ways to help attorneys maximize that billable time and avoiding their time spent on administrative and other tasks.
Thanks so much, Jackie. And we're also joined by Wes Lungwitz, co-founder of Civille. Wes, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Wes Lungwitz, co-founder of Civille. Civille is a company that works exclusively with law firms, websites, digital marketing, really everything you can imagine on the digital marketing space we can handle for you. Personal background, so I've been in the SEO website digital space for over 15 years with our core group here. So yeah, excited to get started.
Thank you so very much for being here, both of you. Let's talk about what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the reality for small firms and outsourcing as a business strategy, kind of an overview of where we are. And then we're going to talk about two of the biggest revenue impact areas to outsource, that's marketing and client communication. And then we're going to talk about how to connect those dots across the entire lead journey. We'll talk about what other tasks you can outsource beyond marketing and intake and how you can choose the right provider. This session is designed with small firms in mind, but honestly, these strategies scale well for firms of almost any size or practice area. And then one more thing before we dive in. Everyone attending will receive a companion ebook after today's session. It's called Five Proven Strategies to Regain Billable Hours, a practical guide for lawyers. And it's meant to help you take what you hear today and actually put it into action. So let's level set with a few data points because this feeling of overwhelm is actually measurable. Industry research shows that attorneys average about only 2.6 billable hours per day. And at the same time, nearly 40% of their work week is spent on administrative tasks, things like intake, missed calls, follow-ups, scheduling, website management, etc. That adds up quickly. Admin overload costs you in both your time and your revenue. It delays response times and it creates a lot of unnecessary stress. Jackie and Wes.
Mhm.
First, I'll start with Jackie. Does this line up with what you hear from firms you work with?
Oh, yeah, constantly. And it just reminds me of the days as an associate, struggling to juggle the calendar around so I could get those billable hours up as high as possible. So it definitely is something that we see and work with our law firm clients to try to help them overcome.
Wes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we see it all the time. Attorneys spending too much time managing different aspects of the business, and marketing website can suck up a lot of that. And I totally get it, especially with small firms. Like I've been in the startup world several times. It's hard to justify the cost when you don't have a consistent source of leads, income. But really, that's going to ultimately hurt the business as you're not able to do the things that you need to do and just need to really find the little things that you think you can do yourself add up quickly.
Awesome, yeah. I'd also love to hear from you guys in the chat as well. Does this line up with your average work week, like the data shows? So let's talk about outsourcing as a business strategy. When we talk about outsourcing today, we're not talking about just handing things off and hoping for the best. The goal of outsourcing is saving time, right? But the goal of outsourcing strategically as a law firm is to protect your billable time plus improve the consistency and quality of your services and reduce the operational drag on your team without adding more staff. Strategic outsourcing is outsourcing that focuses on work that is operational and process driven, recurring and time consuming, and ultimately not the highest value use of an attorney's time. These are things like admin. So for most firms, the highest impact areas tend to fall into these three buckets. You have marketing and digital presence, client intake and communication, and then operational support. That's stuff like bookkeeping, HR, and IT. So now we've established that when it's done right, outsourcing gives you improved consistency, high level expertise, and critically your time back. And that brings us to the first big revenue driver, which is marketing. So Wes, can you walk us through why outsourcing marketing can give firms a real advantage?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I just mentioned before, I think it's easy to think I can do this myself, especially as a smaller firm working to establish your footprint online. You don't want to take any more costs than you have to, but again, it can start to hurt the business. A little context about why firms are choosing to outsource marketing rather than trying to do it themselves or keep it fully in-house. For small and mid-sized firms, part of it can be about capability. There's a lot that you need to know in today's world of marketing, but even if you do have the capability, it's really about efficiency. So marketing today requires deep, specialized expertise. SEO alone has evolved into SEO, AEO, GEO, local optimization, AI overviews, large language models like ChatGPT, all these things that you need to understand how they're working. And those rules are changing constantly. So it's something that I deal with every day is what's the new world of AI search today, right? So staying ahead of algorithm changes, platform updates, best practices isn't something that you can realistically do in your free time, right? When marketing is kind of do it yourself, it's usually inconsistent as well. It happens when you have time, not necessarily when it needs to happen. Consistency is what is going to drive the actual results, right? So even something that seems small, like firms, and this happens all the time. So we do a lot of SEO writing and articles and content marketing for firms, and it almost always comes up during the sales process, like, oh, I can write those myself, or I'll at least supplement my own as well. That's something that I'd like to do. I'll be able to do that, and I don't know, 98 to 99% of the time, that does not happen. We get zero articles submitted by the attorneys, and it's totally understandable. It's another example of think you can do it, but ultimately you run out of time and you're not doing it. So outsourcing solves for speed as well. You're not learning by trial and error. You're working with a team that already has the systems, processes, benchmarks in place. The firms that are going to grow the most predictably aren't building their digital presence piece by piece. They're outsourcing the work that demands their constant attention, or demands constant attention, not their attention necessarily. So everything here, efficiency, expertise, consistency, execution, scalability. These aren't just buzzwords. They're really the difference between marketing that feels stressful and marketing that feels steady. So it's important to note that outsourcing doesn't have to mean the same thing for every firm either. We see a few common models work really depending on where the firm is at, and you can really a la carte it depending on your needs. Like some firms fully outsource marketing end to end. That includes the look and feel of the firm's brand, the strategy, the traditional and organic advertising, paid advertising, everything that follows with it. Some want to keep their strategy internal, but they have a team that runs their website, SEO, Google Business Profile, and their entire organic presence. Others may be happy with all of that, but don't understand paid search and really how to get those placements and need a team to help with that realm. So I guess the important part is to find where the pain points are, what's truly costing your firm, and removing that friction to increase your billable time. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide here. Yep. So in my opinion, everything we're about to talk about starts with the website, right? Whether someone finds you through Google, AI search, ads, referrals, they're still going to look you up, right? In just a few seconds, your website is either reinforcing trust or creating doubt. So thinking about that, when someone is looking for an attorney to handle their case, this is often a large financial item for them, highly sensitive, personal, often all of these things, right? So your website if it doesn't look modern, clean, professional, do you think that these people are going to trust you with their case? Um, there's a lot of options for attorneys to work with. Don't give them these potential clients a reason to go with somebody else. And I hear this all the time, especially with firms that work on referrals. They have a website that might be 10 to 15 years old, but they're like, no, we get referral work. This is a good system for us. We don't really need digital leads. Our website is fine. It's nobody looks at it anyway. I would just challenge that that's simply not true, right? Of the referrals that you're sent over and your team isn't able to get in touch with them or is not able to follow up with them, what are you chalking that up to, right? How many of those people checked you out, didn't feel confident with what they saw, and ultimately went somewhere else? Are you chalking that up to how you potentially represented yourself online? A modern, clean design just signals professionalism. Speed matters more than most people realize, right? Slow sites will lose leads before they ever convert. Real photos, video help humanize the firm. Clear examples and explanations of what you do matter more than ever. Social proof, strong calls to action, security, compliance, all these things are not just nice to have, right? They're table stakes in legal and SEO right now. So outsourcing helps here because all of this creates constant upkeep. What looks modern today won't look modern in 2 years from now, right? Compliance standards change, conversion behavior changes. And I'll keep saying it probably, but the AI AI changes that keep happening and staying in front of that is almost impossible as an attorney. Yeah, we can go to the next one with SEO. So the next layer is really visibility, right? Your ideal clients are searching, but they need to find you. Search isn't just traditional anymore. Like I said, with SEO, it's AI overviews, local results, map packs, recommendation engines. So that means that the site architecture matters, calls to action matter, ongoing content matters, and not just blogs, but pages that answers real questions clearly and consistently, using content on your site, the business profile, social channels to promote your wins, reviews, awards, and differentiators that make you stand out from the crowd, right? Your website, your business profile, your social channels, they should all be talking about these things and showing the wins, humanizing the brand, what people are saying about you. All that social proof is just huge and all works together. Google Business Profile, huge driver of local visibility. I always say consider the website like 1A for your digital presence, and the Google Business Profile is 1B, right? Building it out with photos, posts, products, and more makes you look professional for those checking up on you in the same way as the website does. And then adding keywords on the back end helps it show up higher in search. Also adding those posts, responding to reviews, all the things you should be doing on your business profile. Paid advertising still plays an important role by putting targeted messaging in the right place. And I mentioned your social channels, right? Contributes to your trust and legitimacy. Again, this is where outsourcing is incredibly valuable. These channels don't live in silos; they all feed into each other. So, kind of how the pieces all work together on the next slide here. So, when the system is working the right way, everything reinforces everything else. Modern design builds trust. Strong rankings bring better fit clients. Targeted advertising improves ROI instead of just volume. Clean, transparent data allows you to make better decisions instead of guessing. And this is where the right partners matter, not just vendors, but teams that understand how these pieces connect.
Thanks, Wes. You made some really excellent points. So now let's talk about what happens once those leads actually try to connect to your firm. Jackie, can you tell us about outsourcing client intake and communication and the advantage it gives firms?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I do, I'll tell Wes just anecdotally. I know I have personally been guilty of thinking about marketing and being like, I can do this. Like, how hard could it be? Right. And after, spending so much time and so much money going down every rabbit hole possible, realizing like, oh my gosh, there's so much depth to this. And then saying, okay, a good marketer is absolutely worth their weight in gold. So I have tremendous respect for the marketing companies out there that, like yourself doing what you do there because, my ego made me think it was approachable, and then I quickly realized that is not the case.
You are not
So,
alone.
but I think it's funny. I think some of that same principle can also apply to answering phones, right? Because even on a base level, answering phones sounds really easy to do. And so everyone thinks this is totally something I can do. It's an area where I can save a little bit of money. And so my firm is going to take this approach where we're going to handle all of our calls in-house instead. And I think this is one of those opportunities where you have to, think to yourself that just because you can do something doesn't always mean that you should do that. Because the truth of the matter is it's not the highest and best use of your time, right? And as an attorney running a firm, the one thing that you should be looking for and driving for all the time is ways to maximize your billable hours because that is your product, that is what you're selling. So I try to remind clients of that, think, oh, I can save a few $100s if I just do it myself. Yeah, but what are you actually spending in the long run doing that? So I definitely think that answering phone calls is when a really good outsourcer can help step in and get you that successful win for your law firm. So, just to start, I think it's really good to emphasize the reasons why it is so important to have a strong, enforceable plan for handling your phone calls. A lot of lawyers unintentionally treat their phones as an afterthought, and they don't realize that a lot of revenue is slipping through the cracks of their systems. So to me, there's two kind of components to phone calls in law firms. They're two sides of the same coin, but they have the same sort of impact on your business. The first, of course, is phone calls as a revenue opportunity. That's where the leads that, hopefully a marketing agency like Wes's are driving are coming in to your firm, and they're trying to find out if your law firm is going to be a good fit for them personally and for their case. And then on the flip side of that, as opposed to phones being a revenue opportunity, phone calls, can often be also an interruption and a possible cost driver to your firm. So it's important to realize both aspects of that. I know that when I used to practice law, I used to think of phone calls as this necessary evil because so much business happened by the phone and it was important for me to answer the calls and talk to the callers, but the interruptions drove me crazy, especially if I was doing deep work that required concentration, like drafting or research. So they can kind of be a blessing and a curse. So it doesn't really matter, though, how you want to look at them. It's just that their importance cannot be understated. And so on the revenue or opportunity side of the coin, I think it's important to remember a few key points, right? The first is that your reputation starts the moment someone calls your firm. And actually, to Wes's point, your reputation may actually start when they visit your website if they're coming in from a digital front, right? But if they come in, from another source or after they visit your website, that reputation is getting built in the eye of the beholder there. So every single call that your firm is taking is a huge opportunity to form that reputation or enhance a reputation that you've invested on the online or digital presence. And it is an opportunity for you to increase that revenue. I mean, unfortunately or fortunately for you, depending on how you look at it, nowadays, just having a person answer your phones can be a market differentiator, as many consumers are just getting more and more used to not receiving quality customer service from businesses anymore. The advantage also when you go an outsourcing route for this is that you should be able to get 24/7, 365-day coverage. There's no PTO, no vacation, no, my receptionist is out sick, I'm taking a long lunch break, et cetera, et cetera. Just having that kind of coverage alone is a fantastic reason for why an outsourcer situation can be particularly helpful when it comes to your client calls. And I find that this is especially true if you're in a field of law that maybe isn't business to business, especially if your field of law is higher volume. Clients will call after hours and on the weekends. And if you don't answer, they're going to roll over to the next law firm on their Google search because they're hot on that topic right then and right there. And they want to know that there's somebody that can help them with it. I can't tell you how many law firms tell me, oh, I don't need after hours or weekend coverage. And they do. They don't even realize that people are trying to reach them during those hours until they get it. And then they're like, wow, I got a new client on Saturday. I never would have expected that. So I think that's something that immediately you can get a win from by working with an outsourcer. But whether you're doing it outsourcing or you're doing it in-house, it's not just the fact that you're picking up the call that matters. It does have to be handled well. A professional outsourcer is going to make sure that your firm looks polished, that they look responsive, that they look organized. They're also going to help prioritize capturing that lead information for you. So if you're investing money on the marketing, the outsourcer is going to try to maximize that return for you so that you can be better prepared for consultations with those clients and can drive that revenue a little bit higher. And then at like a bare minimum, right? They should be answering your calls quickly. They should be extremely friendly, and they should have that highest level of professionalism when they're taking the calls. And then, of course, on the interruption side of phone calls, I feel like if you've practiced law for one day, you know exactly what it's like to be trying to work on something while also trying to manage those inbound calls, right? It can be frustrating, both to you and to the caller whose calls may go unanswered. And I know the cost of that can be a lot harder to quantify in dollars and cents. But at the same time, if you have ever been working on a hard deadline and had to stop and answer lengthy calls in the middle of it, I think you understand the value of an outsourcer and how they can help you prioritize your time for those billable and high level thinking tasks that you need to accomplish. So, I mean, that's kind of, just a re-emphasis on the importance of having a strategy for taking your phone calls at your law firm. But outside of having a plan for how to answer your calls, it is important to look at, what happens on the calls themselves, which is on the next slide if you want to hop over there. So, outsourced receptionist companies can perform a variety of tasks for your firm. They can book appointments, they can screen your calls, they can take simple messages. But to me, and in my experience, one of the most productive areas that I hear from law firm clients is in the area of, client and potential client intake. Many law firms describe intake as a pain point. It is time intensive. It is a non-billable task that can eat very quickly into your 8-hour workday. Not every potential client that you're doing an intake question on is going to become a paying client. So there is somewhat of a volume game there that you have to play as well. And then on the flip side, if you're delaying it or you're slow to respond to when that client is ready to do their intake, you can also lose that lead entirely, which can give you potential revenue loss. So, it's a thing that can be a pain point if it's handled incorrectly, but on the flip side of that, it can actually be this huge opportunity for your firm. It is that opportunity to give that great impression, set the right expectations, and more importantly, maximize efficiency for you as the attorney. So I always encourage lawyers when they're looking at using an outsourced, virtual receptionist company to help with their phone calls, don't limit yourself to just them taking messages. Make sure that you structure your phone, invest a little bit of time up front to get your outsourcer working on the areas of your firm that are actually going to impact the amount of time you're able to dedicate to your billable hours. And intake is one of those biggest areas. So there's a few kind of components to consider when having an outsourcer help with intake in particular. The first that we like to talk about is consistency of your intake process. If you don't already have your intake processes documented and well established, a good outsourcer can help you work through that so that you can come up with a repeatable, structured format for intake that can be done over the phone from potential client to potential client. And that structure is going to help you as the lawyer, not weed through might be the wrong word, but evaluate the potential value of that client in a much more efficient manner. A highly trained human who has these processes documented and well established should be able to follow those instructions to a T. And that's going to give you a better handoff, and it's going to leave you better prepared to evaluate the case and consider that client. One thing I would want to note about this when you're looking at outsourcers to help you with intake, the intake process should be very customized to your firm and your firm's needs. There are people out there that are like, here's the 20 questions to ask on intake, and everybody can use the same. That has not been my experience. Even when I practiced law, I had my own things that I wanted to know about clients when I was evaluating their potential as a client. So for you, it needs to be really customized to the way you work. And so my advice here is if you're looking for outsourcers, make sure you're asking them about the flexibility of the platform. Avoid outsourcers that are going to have limits on the amount or on the types of questions they can ask of your callers. Flexibility on the platform itself is going to be really important for getting that consistency tailored to your firm. The next part of it, of course, is professionalism. And you guys are all lawyers, right? So you know how important professionalism, generally speaking, but it extends very much so into this intake because handling intake is a specific skill set. It's both knowing what to say, but also knowing what not to say during that screening process. And so the receptionist that is helping you with that needs to be trained on how to professionally navigate the situations that can oftentimes come up during those client intake calls. Your outsourcer should be able to speak to the level of professionalism of their receptionist, and they can do that in a variety of different ways. At PATLive, by way of anecdotal example, what we talk about is, that we're hiring less than 1% of our job applicants, or that our receptionist will receive 120 hours of professionalism training plus 20 hours that are just specific to the legal industry. If you kind of put those into scale for your firm, most small firms cannot invest almost 4 weeks of training into one receptionist. So having an outsourcer that commits to this means that you get the benefit of that professionalism training without the upfront costs and investment on your side. And any good outsourcer is going to be able and should share with you those statistics so that you can properly evaluate what their professionalism is and how they achieve it. Also, bonus points if the outsourcer provides a free trial, that's really the best way for you to see exactly how professional their receptionists are when they're taking your calls. And then last, we talk about empathy. This is oftentimes overlooked when talking about client intake. I know as a lawyer, especially, we tend to be very pragmatic and hit the like, these are the tasks that must get done. But I think it's very important that you don't forget about empathy on these calls. I think Wes alluded to it earlier, but as you guys know, many times there's a lot of emotion for clients, especially in certain practice areas for sure. When I practiced law, it was bankruptcy. And I remember this very vivid moment very early on in my career where a client called me and was just sobbing on the phone because she was about to lose her home. And I remember thinking, and it's still ingrained in my memory, I remember thinking, man, law school did not train me for this. I'm not sure what to say and how to say it to help this client through it. And it is true, like we're not necessarily trained on those skills as lawyers as best as we think we are. But a good outsourcer in the phone service world is most definitely going to have trained their receptionist for that kind of emotion. And they're going to be able to convey enough empathy to that caller that the caller leaves impressed with your firm and cared for by your firm, but it will also be balanced by a receptionist who is trained on how to navigate and control the call flow so that all of the information you still need to get, right, from your intake is effectively gathered. And it's that balancing act that really helps great receptionists push your intake from good to great, if you will. And then, so finally, I want to talk about the advantage of an outsourcer being able to meet a client where they are at, right in the moment. So this is where potentially adding on services to your outsource can help you get the most value out of that arrangement while providing consistency across all of the channels that clients want to reach you at. So the obvious outsourcing here is inbound calls, right? What we were just talking about. Whenever possible, avoid the voicemail scenario. This is one of the biggest ways to lose revenue in your firm. 80% of callers will not leave a voicemail when they call a phone number. But in addition to that inbound call, there's two other channels that you might want to consider outsourcing for your firm, especially if you're doing heavy marketing and you're investing in some of those like paid channels that Wes was alluding to, or having that online digital presence. So the first one is outbound follow-up. So what outbound follow-up is for a provider like us, if somebody visits your website and they're interested in your service, a lot of times they're just going to fill out a contact us form online. And they're going to fill out that contact us form and then they're going to go, I hope somebody calls me. If you use an outsourcer, they should and could do an outbound call to that person. So the way it works is that form that they submit online gets sent to your outsourcer. And within just a few minutes, your outsourcer is calling them and saying, hey, I see you just submitted some information on my law firm site. I wanted to talk to you about your case and see if you're interested in and see if this would be a good fit for our firm. So that's the first channel that you should consider. And then also a live human web chat on your website. I Personally, I know I'm very vested in this, but I cannot emphasize how good it is to have a live human on the other end of your web chat. There are so many bad bots out there that people just get frustrated trying to interact with bots. And then when a human comes in, they're like, whoa, you're so nice and you're actually real. And it really gives a fantastic impression of your law firm for a very insignificant investment when you're adding it onto your inbound call services. And so being able to catch your clients or your potential clients where they are at, when they are there, is a really big win for your firm and can take you to the next level and drive additional revenue for you. Some considerations about the different channels and whether it works for you is I always tell lawyers to kind of look at a couple different factors, right? It's volume for one. What is the call and the chat volume? And that does play into your strategies from a marketing standpoint. If you're driving people to your website, you should have significant chat volume, and that is a definite advantage to add that channel. But you also want to think about the level of emotions that may be coming in on your calls, and whether calling them immediately and having that face-to-face time is going to help them as they process those emotions, and also who is calling. The fact of the matter is, business to business clients have different expectations than if your practice is, a consumer-based practice, something like a bankruptcy or immigration or criminal law or something along those lines. And so I just encourage attorneys when they're thinking about what channels or potentially add-on services they can get from their outsourcer to think through those components as well. And then whatever your decision is, obviously, I think it's always good to evaluate those capabilities for an outsourcer, because even if it's something that you may not need now, you may want to add it down the road. And it's nice to select an outsourcer that can give you that flexibility to grow down the road.
Thanks, Jackie.
Sure.
What I love about that is how you reframed intake from just this business process, a necessary evil, to a strategic and intentional revenue protection strategy. So
Absolutely.
let's zoom out and connect the dots across the entire lead flow. When a potential client needs help urgently, they might search online or through an AI-powered tool like Wes talked about earlier. If your website optimization is on point, they might click through to your firm's website, skim the page, then hesitate because maybe it's after hours and they don't want to leave a voicemail. They want to talk to someone right now. If there's friction, delay, or no clear way to connect to a real live human, that lead is moving on to the next firm. So today we're going to walk through what happens when every single step of that process is intentionally designed to prevent drop off from the online search to the call. Wes, can you get us started?
Yeah, for sure. This might be just backing up just one second here. So before you capture the lead, right, you need to earn the click. So as I mentioned, that comes from site structure, internal pages built around real search intent, optimized Google business profile, consistent SEO. One other example, so this happens a lot too, is, well, our website doesn't get us good leads. We just get bad leads from the website. Look them up. They're they're ranking poorly. So guess what leads you're going to get, right? These are the leads that the high ranking for that keyword, the high ranking firms have probably, it's not a case that is relevant or that somebody can take, right? So they're going down the line, seeing who can take this, and imagine how much time that is also costing you on intake when you're just getting the poor leads from the website. And the leads that you're not getting are the ones that people are getting, the cases that you want the most, where people that are ranking high up on the page are getting those ones. So big point to make there. Paid advertising also can accelerate it. But paid advertising works when it's best when it's layered on top of a strong foundation on the website and landing pages that make sense and go from the ad copy to the landing page where people feel like they got to the right place after they clicked the ad. Social media can be a part of it as well. Can also be done organically. Social media, a lot of times it's just like if you're posting something, even if you don't have a full plan, you at least, again, it's not another just vacant area where people are like, well, is this a real firm? What's going on? Are they still open? Because they haven't posted since 2021. Yeah, bit of review, but yeah, outsourcing. This isn't, just one tactic. It's about sustainable execution across channels to get that click and to get the lead into your funnel. Find the spots, in your desired lead funnel that aren't working, the ones that you don't have time to do effectively, and effectively being the key word there. You may be able to do it, but you should probably have someone doing it that can effectively run it for you and get the whole thing running. All right, that's getting the click. We'll move on to capturing the lead. So once you do get somebody there, once somebody clicks, the job is not done, right? It's just started. So in 2026, it's really about meeting people where they're at. And Jackie talked about the call answering and chats. It's really having options, right? Click to call, text messaging, interactive forums, interactive chats, calendar bookings. Make an option for how people feel comfortable connecting with you, right? Some of that's knowing your demographic and knowing the advertising that you're running and having the right calls to action on those specific pages. Younger people are more likely to interact with a chat, right, than call you. The older generation, a lot of them aren't even giving you the click. They're getting to your website and they're just typing in the number that they see on your website into their phone. So you're not actually getting the click, but it was displayed there and you have that click to call option for them as well. The old days of having just a basic lead form don't always work as well. There's often a negative connection, with a standard lead form. People have had experiences where they fill out a lead form, and then this is a lot of times like if they do looking for buying a car or other things like that, other outside of legal, where they just know if I fill out that lead form, I'll never stop hearing from this person for the rest of my life. And also a standard lead form doesn't always give them a real call to action. Like if I fill this out, what's going to happen next, right? Like Jackie said, I'm just hopefully somebody will call me at that point, right? So the easier you can make it for someone to kind of raise their hand, the more likely they are to convert and make it conversational. Again, the custom forms, you can make custom forms, or we do custom forms that prepare questions depending on how the last answer is how the last thing that they answered is. The next question relates to that, right? It's a multi-step form that gets them down the path. And okay, this is the right legal help for me. It's not just a one-shot form and submit. Interactive chat tools, right? So Jackie mentioned live chat. Certainly, if you're not using live chat, it has to be something like this as well that's going to give them the right path. We do have an AI chat that kind of does that path. It's not just hopefully not a frustrating bot, but live chat is great if they can talk to a person about their actual legal case. It's a big deal. Having the attorney's face on those chats, video, interactive, feel like they're really working with a person and not having a frustrating experience. Give a lot more. It also gives you a lot more information. So standard form, sure, you probably have the description on the bottom that they can type in whatever they want, but they're not going to likely do that, right? You've already made them fill out 9, 10 different fields, whatever it is. And you don't get a lot of information that when you have multi-step forms and a chat conversation, it's a lot more information that you're passing through to intake that can be used on a callback that is really relevant, makes the person feel like they didn't just waste their time going through that process. This person already looked at it, is already kind of working for them and has relevant feedback for them on what they actually filled out. The calls themselves, again, having a dedicated team that works in the legal space, right? Like PATLive answering the call and you can give that same lead qualification information that you might put on a custom form or a chat tool. They can work with that same qualification to really get the person engaged and bought in to the process instead of just, okay, they'll call you back. Huge opportunity here, qualifying the leads before they reach intake, saving time for everybody. So whether they work through the custom chat, call you, have steps defined to qualify the leads, make sure that they're leads that make sure that they're leads that you actually want to work with. You can even, potentially disqualify. So we have an example, some disability firms that we work with. One of the things that they struggle with is okay, we have this leads form, but a lot of people that are already receiving disability and have their number that's assigned, it's a government assigned amount that they're getting, they want to increase that number. It's not something that we can help with. Our intake gets inundated with those kind of asks. So that's one of the things that we'll put on these forms or within the process is, are you already receiving benefits, right? And we can actually route that lead differently depending on how those questions are answered. Not that they'll necessarily, you can refer it out to another firm that may work those long tail leads and see if there's another disability in place or something like that, or just not a priority lead within your CRM as it routes through, right? All right, so yeah, and just making it a smooth experience and a good experience for the person when you're capturing the lead. And I guess the last piece that I want to talk about with all that is the attribution and optimization. So because this is where marketing stops feeling like guesswork and feels like a system. So clear, concise reporting from your marketing partner should tell you a few simple things, right? Where your leads are coming from, what's actually driving the calls and forms, what channels are producing the best fit cases, not necessarily just the most traffic. So this is something that a website vendor or marketing partner should be providing for you, full transparency, ROI reporting, in addition to working with a rep at the company that can guide you through that. And then when you find out what those are, let's put more money in this. Let's do more of this because these are what's working. This is what's driving the right kind of leads for us. So because just having that clarity helps you make informed decisions instead of emotional ones, right? It's too easy to say, well, I don't think this is working. I don't think this is working. Let's look at the data, right? We sit down all the time and talk. Let's actually look at the data and see where the clicks are coming from. Let's talk about which ones are converting to actual cases and the best cases for you. You can invest more confidently if you want to when that's working. Cut what isn't, keep improving month after month. That's how firms get to predictable ROI with their marketing spend. Not by trying random tactics or jumping boat and moving back and forth, but by tracking results and optimizing consistently over time. Ultimately, that's what outsourcing should give you, right? Not just more activity, but clarity and control.
Great, thanks, Wes. So at this point, the right lead has found the firm and shown intent. So Jackie, what happens next and how can firms protect that moment?
Oh, so many things can happen. And this is, kind of a great segue here, talking about all these different components and pieces that Wes is laying out there. We mentioned live chat here. I think I won't spend too much time on this because Wes also commented on it. Using those structured intake questions to gather meaningful information can really help make your processes more efficient, but also give feedback to potential clients if you're not the right firm for them. And sometimes, telling clients that you're not the right firm for them can be as valuable as finding which ones are for you. Especially if, like Wes alluded to, you're that disability firm spending too much operational time on clients that are not going to join your firm. And AI bots on live chats can be good if they're set up really well. And we use them. I know Wes's firm uses them. I know a lot of firms that do use them successfully. And so if using a human is not in the budget, put the AI on there. Get something on your site so that you can meet those clients where they're at, like we referred to earlier. The next, channel, of course, I think is inbound calls. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. So we talked about inbound calls a little bit. And one of the things that, I want to emphasize, because it's a very short webinar to cover a huge amount of things, right? As Wes was mentioning, there are a ton of options and a lot of components to this end-to-end process of finding and getting leads and then massaging them to make sure they're right for your firm and then getting them to be a paid client. Right. It's quite of a process, but don't get overwhelmed by a lot of the words and things that we're throwing out here, because at the end of the day, all of these different components and pieces are opportunities for your firm. And the right outsourcers are going to help you decide which pieces are right for your firm and for your budget. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing, here at PATLive is actually working with the marketing agencies when we're setting up some of our clients. So we have onboarders. A good outsourcer is going to give you a good onboarding experience. But one of the things we like to do is invite the client to bring their marketing agency to that onboarding session if they have that kind of relationship with their marketing agency. Because then what we can do is make sure that we're all aligned on what that entire process is, and we're all contributing to that entire process. And we're also making sure that we're providing the tracking to help you and your marketing agency measure your ROI on those phone calls as well. And the last note I'll make here about live call answering and how it fits into this big, flow is that there is a really good opportunity here to utilize the outsourcing dollars better by integrating it directly with the software that your firm may already be using. So if you're using a practice management software, like Clio or Lawmatics or something along those lines, or you're using a calendar tool, a Google Calendar or a Calendly or even an Outlook calendar kind of structure, structure your calendar with your outsourced receptionist so that they're actually able to book those appointments directly into your calendar or input the information directly into your CRM. It is far more valuable for you to invest a little bit of time upfront to setting these integrations and processes up because it will save you a ton of time down the road. A lot of times, you know, sometimes lawyers think, let me just set this up quickly and you can take messages for me and then I'll get this other stuff added on later. And they never get around to the later. And what they end up doing is, paying us to just take messages, but it's effectively creating to-do list items for them on the back end that we could have handled on the front end for them. And I think that there's an opportunity there if you invest that time for us to do the integration. It not only saves you back-end data entry time, but it also helps track your investment in the marketing dollars and the ad spend there. And it also helps you maximize those conversions because those tools are also going to help you pick up on it in the back end as well. So invest that time as best as you can. And lastly, I think we have speed to lead. So if you're not in the marketing world, you may never have heard this term before, but this phrase speed to lead is something that a lot of people love to say. It's a good buzzy term. But all it means is when you're getting a lead, you need to reply to it as fast as humanly possible. This is where money gets left on the table. People are impatient. It's just how we're built. And we're getting more and more impatient as the years go by. So speed to lead is the concept of replying extremely quickly to a lead when it's sent to your firm, especially if it's like submitted on a website form, like we were talking about earlier. And when I say speed, I am talking about minutes here, not hours, not days. Sometimes law firms think, oh, well, I replied to them within 2 days. That is no longer an acceptable response time for your leads. They have moved on to other firms that they find in their Google search or through their other sources. Study after study has been released showing that responding to a lead within 5 minutes of its submittal on your website can significantly increase your chance of that lead converting to a paid client. Depending on your practice area and your type of client, that amount could be almost as much as 400% higher chance of converting if you respond within 5 minutes. And so one of the ways that you can do that is by using an outbound service through an outsourcer. And it's just usually a thing you can add on. And like I said earlier, it's configured so that as soon as that lead information is submitted on a website, it gets routed to your outsourcer. They pick up the phone, they call that potential client. They're going to follow your specific call handling instructions. And if it's appropriate, they'll do some intake on that call. If you have it hooked up to your CRM, it'll get dumped right directly into that software. So when you show up to work the next morning, you might have an appointment booked on your calendar with all the information you need from somebody who just visited your site the day prior. And that is where, you can really get a really smooth end-to-end system for your leads.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I want to be mindful of everyone attending and their time. So just a reminder that we are recording this webinar and we will send it shortly after the webinar ends. So if you aren't able to stay with us, then we will send it to you shortly and you will be able to watch it at your convenience. So marketing and intake get most of the attention because we love them, but they're not the only areas where outsourcing can make a really big difference. There's bookkeeping and billing, HR and payroll, IT support and security. These are all functions where the consistency we've been talking about matters more than personal involvement. Jackie and Wes, you both outsource critical functions in your own companies. Do you have experience outsourcing any of these areas and any insights you can give?
Yeah. I'll go first, West, if that's all right. So, yeah, obviously we're an outsourcer, but as a business owner, I definitely am on the other side of that equation sometimes too. I outsource lots of components of our business. And these, of course, are the three ones that most people kind of look at. So just at a very high level, I look at a few things, right? What is the opportunity cost of our time spent on these areas? That is my first and foremost kind of analysis that I look at. And what is the skills requirement? Is this something that is fairly universal that an outsourcer can help us with, or is it something that is really specific to my firm and only an internal person is going to be able to accomplish it? Is there a compliance factor there? Compliance, like on the HR payroll or the IT support and security is a big deal. And I want to make sure that we're, checking those boxes, but I also don't want to make sure that we're having all that subject matter expertise in-house. That's just not pragmatic for our time to be spent on that. And then I just look at how much time it would consume, and particularly in areas where it's not a full-time role, it makes a tremendous amount of sense to look at an outsourcer solution for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. Bookkeeping and billing will quickly take your time. And even as, startup and growing out of that, yeah, like you just said, there's some options, some great options out there that are not necessarily taking on full-time staff, but you can outsource that, and yeah, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
HR and payroll is the same thing. IT and support security, I would say that's a lot of what we do is security on the website side. So we do have a good internal team there, but absolutely, I mean, security cannot be more important right now. So easy to get hacked. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just critical data that you cannot expose.
Thanks, Wes. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, so once a firm decides what to outsource, the next question is who? Some best practices to follow when you're searching for the right provider are finding providers who have elements that build trust, like credentials, SLAs, reporting confidentiality standards, and free trial periods, and making sure to focus on trust, quality, and transparency as you make your decision. So, Wes, can you speak a little bit to how firms can look for providers who build trust with their clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, and something that I always ask, I think when you're looking at somebody, it's really what, first of all, what are they providing exactly? I think we get in a lot of conversations where it's kind of an unknown, and we're talking about the digital side. SEO can be kind of an unknown thing. Like there are deliverables that are around it though. Like you should actually know what things you're getting every month. If it's a subscription service, what are they doing? That it's not just on autopilot. So being very doing your homework and asking them directly what's happening every month, and your account manager should be able to answer that. As far as, yeah, reviews, um, there's a lot of sites out there that people are having conversations and recommending that you should kind of look at. But referrals are always good, although hard to get them all the time.
Cameron, can you turn it to the next slide? Thank you. I think this might help with some of those extra points that you were making, Wes, like
Yeah.
having great verified reviews and great reputation.
Yeah, I was just going to say that just like in any field, experience does matter. It's really easy in today's day and age for companies to kind of spin themselves up and profess to be an expert in something. It's not the reality of it, though. And this is true, like in every field. I believe that, one of the things I look for when I'm working with outsourcers is the years of experience, not just of the company, but of the people that are going to be on my account, right? Does that person who they've assigned to me have the depth of experience that I would be looking for? Because I can't afford to train somebody else right now, and let them train on me. So I look at the experience very deeply.
Nice. Thank you so much. And then, Jackie, can you speak to quality and how to choose the right provider?
Yes. So obviously, we all want a quality outsourcer, right? Like this should be the number one goal of us. It is kind of hard upfront to assess that, though, if you're not looking for the right thing. So one of the things that I find most important is, does the outsourcer already have like a structured, clear onboarding process with clear expectations of what they're going to need from me and what I'm going to contribute to that? I feel like if that initial onboarding phase feels disjointed or not as organized or not really cohesive, it's a sign of underlying organizational struggles that that outsourcer has. And so I kind of evaluate that right from the bat. Obviously, having a dedicated point of contact or account manager is going to be very important when you're dealing with quality, because if you have any sort of quality struggles, you don't want to get passed around from person to person. It's important that there's a point person there who is going to understand whatever challenges you've had and can help you overcome them in the future. I also really like, from a quality perspective, when an outsourcer doesn't just say we're really good, but can also provide for you what that accountability looks like. Like, how do they determine that they are a quality provider? What are the KPIs or the key performance indicators that they lean on to say this is high quality? And are they sharing those with you for your particular account as well? And then, as I talked about earlier, right, this cooperation with other providers. Today's world is nothing exists in an insular space anymore. So, when a firm is using providers for different aspects of their operations, it can be very helpful for those folks to talk to each other. And a good quality provider is going to offer that option and is going to welcome that opportunity to talk to others in that regard.
Thanks, Jackie. And that is a really good segue into transparency, actually.
Transparency is my favorite. It's the trust but verify, right? When you're using an outsourcer, one of the most important things is you cannot just set it and forget it. You have to kind of think of them almost like an employee, right? And you wouldn't have an employee in your firm that you spun up on day one and then never spoke to again. So I do believe that a relationship with a good outsourcer should be sort of similar. And transparency is the key to this. What you want is visibility into the work, but also visibility into the outcomes. And this is where mapping it back to that onboarding can be important, right? In the onboarding, you want to be making sure you're setting out what those expectations are. And then in the visibility portion of it, you want to see if those expectations are getting lived up to. So depending on the type of outsourcer, right? So like for Wes's situation, it may be really good reports that are sent on a regular schedule showing traffic or leads. For us, for example, at PATLive, our visibility is we let you listen directly to the call recordings that we're taking. So if you want to hear exactly how they're being handled, you can log in and hear them at any time. And if a provider says that they can't provide you access with that, you might want to question how it is that you're going to get visibility into their quality and into their performance. And then I definitely like, from a transparency standpoint, understanding what those escalation paths look like if there is something that needs attention. So you don't feel like you're just kind of floating out there. You want that account manager person and that path for assistance when it's needed.
Thanks, Jackie. Wes, do you have any thoughts to add on how to choose the right provider for these?
Yeah, I mean, I think to Jackie's point about trusting their experience, I think it's okay in the sales process or the vetting process to ask to talk to somebody else, right, and see what their experience is and who runs the company, right? I jump on these all the time. Like, I think it's important to understand that the people that are behind, are on the leadership level, understand it and truly why they built the business and what they believe in. Not just like sales rep, and you have to sign like one or the other. I think that's totally fair to ask. And on the reporting standpoint, or the reporting point, making sure that aligns with your actual business success, right? Not just, well, looks like everything's going great. Here's the data. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not feeling like it's going great, then let's talk about this. And what are you reporting on? And what does this mean? And something's not aligning, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up, um, and head to our key takeaways. Just a quick reminder, you'll receive the companion ebook shortly after today's session, as well as the recording of today's webinar. If there's one main takeaway to remember, it's this: outsourcing, when done strategically, using the best practices and insights we talked about today, can help really protect your time, your reputation, your revenue, and your sanity. We've got some time for a few questions, so go ahead and drop them in the chat now, and we will start running through some of them. See one, in what situations is it better to outsource versus hiring internally? Jackie, do you want to take that first? I think you both can answer.
Sure. I don't ever outsource our core job function. All right. Like our core job function is to answer calls in the best possible way. I'm not outsourcing that to another firm or another company to do that for me. If I was a lawyer, I would not be outsourcing my case management to others because that is what they're paying me for, is my ability to manage that case. So to me, that is the biggest, like, is this core to what you're offering your clients? And if so, that is something I would not consider outsourcing.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. I think it's fair to say, look at, is it financially responsible, right? So taking on an employee and everything that goes along with having a full-time employee, can you get a lot more output from an outsourcer for essentially less? And then you're getting, access to their team and all these core competencies instead of hoping, right, that one hire that's going to take that budget or more of that budget is going to be able to do it for you.
Thank you guys so much. I'll wait just a second for any more questions, and then we can wrap up. What should you outsource first? Is there an order? Wes, take this one first.
I don't know. Well, thanks. I don't know if there's necessarily an order. I think just it depends on what you're good at as well and what you feel like you can competently do quickly and it won't take your time. It's really just evaluating your business and okay, what are the things that are taking the most of my time? Maybe that I'm not, it's not a core competency of mine. That's what you should outsource first, right? Take away that pain point and then work down from there.
Thanks, Wes. Jackie, do you have thoughts?
Oh, yeah, that's a tricky question. I think Wes hit the nail on the head there. You have to really look internally. For me, I know I'm an infrastructure person. I like to have my infrastructure set up um, so that I'm ready to grow and scale. So I do tend to look at those kinds of things first. But certainly it is specific to whatever your use case is, right? If you've got a good infrastructure, but you're not getting the leads, then you should look to a marketing agency as one of your first outsourcing opportunities. If you have good referrals and good clients coming in, but you're struggling to answer your phones and keep up with that, then you should definitely pivot to that instead. And I would definitely kind of look internally for that answer.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Wes. Okay, everyone, thank you all so much for joining us today. And big thank you again to Jackie and Wes for sharing your insights today. We really appreciate your time. We hope today helped you see a clearer path to reclaiming your billable hours. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.